Musume is gonna reach its 10-year anniversary since it first was announced in 2016. And ever since that moment, a lot of things were created by this IP. We saw Haru as a spoiled brat, we saw the franchise as a regular high school slice of life, and we saw it as a mainly comedy based series up until they decided to make the switch. And ever since that moment is when we actually found how good this franchise can actually be. The story of the injuries of the second season, the story of the retirement in the third season, the story of being on the shadow of other legends in the movie, and more recently in Cinderella Grey, the story of one of the most important horses in Japanese history. But sadly, every single one of these stories has come to an end, whether it is in their anime format or in manga format. And right now, outside of the game, there's only a single serious piece of media remaining from this franchise, with the name Musume Pretty Derby Star Blossom. Hello there. It is very sad to reach this moment in the franchise. I have been a huge fan from the second that I was introduced to it. Every single race got me engaged. Every single individual moment felt special in one way or another. It made me cry, it made me laugh, it made me feel anxious at the things that were coming. And all of that across all of the seasons of the anime, and eventually as well the manga of Cinderella Grey. But I have already made reviews about every single one of those aspects, and there's nothing left except for Star Blossom. Star Blossom is, as I said in the intro, the last piece of media that is actually serious from the franchise that is still active. It is safe to assume that, considering that this is gonna be the 10-year anniversary, alongside the fact that this is gonna be the year of the horse in China, that they are gonna announce something soon, whether it's from a manga, an anime, or something like that. But up until we actually know that, Star Blossom remains as the only piece remaining. And what is the actual verdict from this manga that is completely different from Cinderella Grey? Is actually quite solid and very decent. Now, I have to address the elephant in the room, that is that Star Blossom is a manga exclusive, which means that there is so far no anime confirmed. If you're planning to read Star Blossom, or if you're reading it right now, it is more likely than not that you already read the entirety of Cinderella Grey, which is a huge important detail, because Star Blossom is a completely different experience from the Cinderella Grey manga. Star Blossom feels like an overall more serious experience than the original anime, but the tone of it is still way closer to that than what it is to Cinderella Grey, which is something to take into consideration. The other big detail that you have to think about is the fact that the drawing style is completely different. While Cinderella Grey mostly goes for a way more serious drawing and at times even realistic in order to depict the emotions and the average panels, Star Blossom goes for a way more cartoonish type of art style, to the point that at times even feels somewhat childish. This is intended. This is not something accidental or they disregard in this story in order to give more of the good stuff to Cinderella Grey. It's just extremely different, and you have to take that into consideration. When you are reading Star Blossom, you are not reading Cinderella Grey. You're reading its own unique story that is way different to that. And with those things in mind, I will actually start with the review of Star Blossom, not before shamelessly asking you to please leave a like and subscribe, because that helps the channel and it would be beneficial for both you and me. So please leave a like and subscribe. The first thing that makes Star Blossom such a different experience from the others is the protagonist itself. I'm not gonna go into too much detail about her right now, but let's say that this is not your stereotypical protagonist of this franchise. Sakura Laurel is by no means a full-on winner, unlike most of the other protagonists. Basically, every other character that we see in a protagonistic role is way more successful than her from the get-go. Especially wins multiple G1s in the span of like half a season, Tokaiteyo almost wins an undefeated Triple Crown, Kita-san Black wins like 3 G1s before the half season mark, and even the not as accomplished horses, which are the ones from Road to the Top, Beginning of a New Era, and even Cinderella Grey, are way more successful. All of the girls of the Road to the Top trio win something important, Pocket wins multiple G1s in the first time that we see her, and even though Ogre Cup doesn't win anything extremely meaningful until the ending of the first season, she is an absolute legend in her home turf, and she wins a whole bunch of different G2s and G3s before winning the first G1. The protagonist not only is yet to even participate in the first G1 of her career, but it's the fact that she hasn't even won a graded race period, regardless of the number. Which is extremely crazy, because from what I am so far, which if I'm not mistaken is like up to date with the translators, I am in the mid 40 chapters. So that means that in the first 50 she is yet to do anything of what you would say meaningful. Even when you compare with Ogre Cup, it's extremely glaring. Despite the fact that 50 chapters is still something that is not particularly long, that is roughly in the Japan Cup on Ogre Cup's story. Compare that with not even being a winner in a G3 is extremely insane. But there is where this story starts showing you what it's all about. This is not the story of a champion. This is not the story of a winner. This is not the story of a prodigy. This is the story of a horse that had to pass through a lot of struggles in order to reach the top. Probably more than any other horse that we have seen in this entire series. This is not the type of story in which the protagonist is the absolute best, but is someone that is working so hard to even be considered to be one of the better horses. And she struggles so much by doing it. And what the hell is the cat doing down there? Pocket, what are you doing? Yeah, she's called like Pocket. Guess why? She's not in an extremely high ranked team, and her trainer is not even the main trainer of said team. And none of her teammates are even particularly great ones either. Besides Bakushin. Yeah, there's Bakushin here. But yeah, the way in which this story works is definitely in the type of you have to work so hard to even have the opportunity to fight these other prodigies. And they show it perfectly. Sakura Laurel doesn't feel fully like a protagonist in the same way as others because she is too optimistic, to say in a way. It's clear that the intention is to show a character that is able to surpass any inconvenience, but when you come from having so many other different protagonists, it feels kinda weird at times. Having a protagonist in which not only a win is not granted, but the fact that it is not even the main possibility is so different from the others. And combine that with the style in which they draw everything, which is something that I already established a little bit earlier, it feels completely different to every single other experience. The drawing art style specifically is one of the more interesting aspects in this story, because not only shows the emotions in such a weirdly different way from others, but it feels like there is even a wider range of emotion that they can portray. Yeah, the drawings are not nearly as phenomenal as the ones from Cinderella Grey, and it's very unlikely that you are gonna get those insanely high panels that you get in that manga. But the emotions feel at times more real. And that is very interesting and very cool to watch. And the more interesting part of that is that it's not fully just on Sakura Laurel, which is the protagonist, but every single member of the Team Alkes feels like it shows a wide variety of emotions, way more than the other pseudo protagonists or teammates of every other show and every other piece of media of the franchise. Which is something that I also like a lot in this one, is that the team feels way more impactful than in Cinderella Grey. Do you remember the names of the girls? I remember Kraft or something like that. I remember that there's a girl like it's like God, quite literally named God. Do I know anything else about her? She wants to be held by Oguri. Me too, but we don't talk about that. But yeah, Team Alkes feels way more important as a team than the team of Cinderella Grey. It feels almost as a family. It feels very close, everyone with each other. Something that is way more closer to Team Spica. In fact, I would say that it feels more like a proper family than Team Spica, in which it feels at times that it's just a combination of individuals. This one, everyone feels from others, everyone feels the pain of others, everyone cheers for the others in a meaningful way, and I really love it. But right now, what I think that is the most important part of what we have seen so far is the duality of Sakura Laurel with another character. We do not know a lot about Sakura Laurel despite the fact of her being the protagonist, but we know that she has two main objectives. The first one is trying to compete in the Grand Prix of the Arc de Triomphe, because her trainer wants someone to go to that place being trained by her, and because both of them are very similar to each other in different ways, Sakura Laurel wants to fulfill that dream for her trainer, which is someone that I haven't fully mentioned a lot because it's difficult to evaluate this trainer so far. She is way more dedicated than other trainers, but the fact that it has been so little time makes me not be able to fully talk about her. But the second dream of Sakura Laurel and her actual dream is to be able to compete and win against the representation and the most important Uma from her own generation, and one of the greatest horses in Japanese horse racing history, Narita Brian. In the few chapters that we have had, Narita Brian feels like that impossible to beat rival, to a point that at times you feel like she is the actual protagonist. Kinda like how Tamao Cross at times feels slightly more of a protagonist than Oguri Cup, especially in the Japan Cup, but way more obvious at times. Narita Brian is a very interesting character that we have seen multiple times throughout the franchise lifespan. We have seen her a whole bunch of different times, like being part of the presidential committee in the Troisen Academy in the first season and the first couple seasons of the anime. We have seen her being an important character in multiple stories of Uma Young, but we have never seen her in anything close to a protagonistic role in a serious story. And we see all of it in a very good way. We see why she is the way that she is, why she is such a strong Uma. In fact, she is the character that we spend the most amount of time watching her backstory. Extremely interesting decision, especially considering that they already had the blueprint of multiple other stories. Give her so much screen time in the chapters from 30 onwards kinda in the manga. I think that is something like that. We see the story of how she became what she is. We see her struggle for his youth against her sister Biwa Hayahide. We see her compete in the Triple Crown and all of the important things. And we see how she, the main protagonist of that year in horse racing in Japan, goes for a important for her objective, which is trying to beat her sister in an actual race. And we see her training, we see how she tries to develop further and further, how she goes for all of that, and then her sister, as tragic as it always is in this franchise, and how it happens a lot of different times, had to retire before they were able to meet each other. Brian gets completely crushed when she learns that about her sister. She is the reason as to why she starts racing. She is the reason as to why she becomes such a strong competitor. And she wanted to show her how she become what she was against her, and that is gonna be impossible. The monster that was supposed to be the character to beat, and her sister that despite all of that, she constantly got better times than her sister, even if it's not in races with each other. They simply cannot see each other. And that is what I think that is the important message from this story. As I said, this is not a finished manga. If it were to be the same length as something like Cinderella Grey, we would not even be a third into the story. And even if we are going for a shorter story, which I think that is gonna be, we're probably just halfway through it. But I truly believe that this story is more focused in all of what it means to find a purpose to keep going. What happens when your whole motivation seems so out of reach for everyone, especially for you? How do you keep moving forward if your only objective or your main objective is actually fully impossible for you? What can Sakura Laurel, a mid-level horse that can struggle really hard to just get into the top positions of a G3 race, do against a Triple Crown winner? And what can Narita Brian, a Triple Crown winner that has everything to be one of the greatest of all time, can do now that her whole reason as to why she loved to run is no longer there? What can she do? What can they do? Well, the answer is just moving forward. Because as always in this franchise, you have to move forward. You might cry, you might struggle, you might feel sad. Sometimes you might even have to sacrifice some things. But just like in real life, and just like in life itself, you have to keep moving forward. And as a horse, you have to keep running forward until you cannot do it anymore. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want more content like this, talking about different shows and or mangas, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm very sad at saying that this is gonna be the last video evaluating and analyzing something related with the Musume's animes or mangas in a long time, because there's literally nothing else to watch. But I still wanted to say thank you, both to the franchise for this amazing ride, and to all of you for supporting this channel. And yeah, without anything else to explain, I hope that you enjoyed it once again, and see you next time. Bye bye.